Well, hello there, my farmer friends. It's Corinna from mydigitalfarmer.com and sharedlegacyfarms.com. Hope you guys are having a great week. I am jumping in for this Monday's weekly marketing tutorial. I want to say a special hello to all of our new friends in the group. We've got quite a bit of new farmer action going on this week. Really excited to have you here. So today I'm going to start out by talking about a really important concept in the marketing world, and it's called pre-framing. This was not a term that I had ever heard of until I began to study marketing, and I want to just spend one whole session talking about what it is and why it matters. And I want to do so I want to start this conversation out by telling you a story. So I used to be a youth minister long ago in my former life. And I would take my students on a lot of fun outings. And one of the trips that we did was actually to a haunted corn maze. And maybe some of you farmers even have one of those as part of your farm. And we showed up, it was a dark night, the weekend of Halloween, and there was a huge line, a lot of anticipation, a lot of excitement. And we walked into the corn maze, and I was scared out of my mind because I don't really do well with horror movies and all that. And right away, as we started to go through the maze, things began to pop out of the corn and scare us. And there would be these creatures that will come right up to your face. And of course, they can't touch you, right? But they're right there and they make you scream and run. And as they jumped out and scared us, we all began to clump together as this one massive group of students and leaders and just try to make it through alive, right? Like that was our goal, just get through the maze. And I remember one very distinct part of this experience, and it was the middle of the corn maze. I began to smell the smell of gasoline. And I knew what this was, or exhaust. It was more like gasoline exhaust. And I knew what it was because prior to getting to this point in the maze, I had periodically heard a chainsaw going off and then screams, like crazy screams every time that happened. And so as I began to smell the chainsaw smell and the gasoline smell, I knew it was coming. And sure enough, like 7 seconds later, like clockwork, the chainsaw revved up and this guy jumps out and starts chasing us. And we just ran in the direction that this thing was chasing us in. And slowly we made our way through the maze. Every time we, went down a certain path, sometimes something would jump out at us and we would then go in the opposite direction. Hi, Angie. And so what I began to notice as we moved through that maze, through that haunted corn maze, was that we were being guided through the maze. Those creatures, those characters, the actors were jumping out in very intentional ways to make sure that we followed the path that we wanted them to. So there was a pathway for us as the haunted corn maze clients that they wanted us to follow. And through their actions, they made sure that we went through those proper doorways and that we didn't get lost in the parts of the maze. I mean, this was a huge corn maze. And so they wanted to kind of move these people through, right? So they had a schedule, they had a pathway that they wanted us to take so they could move people through. So I tell this story because I think this is a really great example of what pre-framing kind of is in the marketing world. Advertisers and marketers use pre-framing all the time. And what pre-framing is it's how your brand is introduced to the potential client, to the potential customer over time. And so if you were to picture your customer's journey as like a path through a maze, through a series of doors, your brand, you as the farmer, have an opportunity to control how they move through your brand, what doorways they go through, which parts of the maze they're going to go down and which ones they're not. And the experiences that you create within that journey will cultivate certain feelings within your customer if you do it right, and it'll get them to the end. So you want to be able to control how your customer sees you, how they know you, what your first impression is, what their first impression is of you, and how you introduce yourself to them from the very beginning and how you continue to introduce yourself to them through the journey of the customer, okay? So it matters how customers are first introduced to your brand, all right? And that's what this concept of pre-framing is. How you pre-frame your offer, how you pre-frame your brand, your farm, your products. What are the doorways that your customers are coming through? What kind of copywriting, what kind of images, what kind of branding, video content, offers, products, all of that stuff is in a way a kind of a pre-frame, and how they experience that is going to matter in terms of whether they stay with you or not. So I just want to kind of share with you four different scenarios here to kind of help you see this a little bit better. So I want you to imagine a complete stranger to your brand. They don't know who you are at all. They've never heard of you, okay? That's scenario one. Scenario two is someone who, we're going to assume that you're a CSA farmer, because this is a group for CSA farmers, okay? Scenario number two is someone who hears about your CSA from an actual customer who's like, oh my gosh, I love the box. It's so awesome. You should totally try it, okay? So you have a customer in that scenario who's heard about it from someone else. The third scenario, someone who has maybe seen other customers walking around the farmer's market, one of your pickup sites, with your actual box or the bag, and they're like, huh, okay, and that's all they've ever seen. They keep seeing people walking around with this box, all right, and that's the only frame that they've seen of your farm. Well, and then the fourth scenario might be someone who has maybe watched several videos. Maybe they follow your Facebook page, and you show up and you do like a video every week on like teaching how to freeze corn. Maybe a different week it's, hey, did you know you can freeze garlic? Let me show you how. Maybe another week it's like, hey, I'm going to show you a formula for the perfect pesto. Okay, whatever. It's kind of stuff that I tend to do on my Facebook group. So those are the four different scenarios, those four different kinds of leads or customers. Which one of those four is going to be more likely to listen to your pitch to buy your CSA? Okay. Now, I think it's pretty obvious that the first one, who's never heard of you at all, is going to be a hard sell, right? But the one who maybe has been recommended by a friend, that's probably the person that's most likely to step through that door and purchase that product from you. So this is because the frame through which a person passes before they hear about your product, before they hear your official pitch, really matters. And so I think one mistake, I've talked about this before, that I used to make, and I think a lot of CSA farmers still make, is that they try to pitch this high ticket product to a cold audience, to someone who has never even heard about you. They just throw up an ad on Facebook and hope that people will convert and purchase it. And I think the statistic is like 1% of cold audiences will convert for something like that if it's a high ticket item. So those conversions tend to be very, very low. So becoming a master at marketing means that you really understand this art of pre-framing your brand, getting your potential clients' eyeballs on your content, on your farm, way before you ever pitch them anything. So how can you engineer and craft that journey through the maze for your customer so that they will get to know you first, so that they bond with you, right? Bonding is like step one. They need to know, like, and trust you. They need to believe that you're going to help them get to where they want to go as a customer, and that takes time, and you have to create frames through which they will pass. Oh no, my connection's going bad. All right, let me move around. So CSA marketing is unfortunately a long game in many cases. You really need, in order to be effective at it in the long term, you can't just rely on short-term bursts of, hey, I'm going to throw up my offer on Facebook and hope that people will buy it. You really have to create a machine underneath that begins to create pre-frames that people who are first hearing about you can walk through and begin to build that relationship with you. All right, they have to be warmed up, and that takes time. Now, there's kind of 3 steps. I feel like in the marketing system, this is very like high level, but like step 1 is what I would call pre-framing, okay, getting them to come in through some sort of portal. Then there's indoctrination, which is sort of giving them value, teaching them things, helping them come to know you and feel like they're a part of your tribe. And then finally is conversion, okay, where they actually purchase what you want them to purchase, okay? That's just very high level. So if you have ever watched the customer value journey training, if you haven't, if you're new to this group, this is probably one of the top 2 videos I'd recommend you watch first. This is probably backwards, so you can't see it. But every customer goes through a journey in every industry. This is not just farming, okay? This is what they teach in marketing school, that there's a customer value journey, and customers start out over here. Actually, they don't even step into this quadrant yet. They're totally unaware of who you are. And then they have to enter this pre-frame. They need to become aware that you exist. So you create content, you create different types of things that will allow them to become aware that you're even there, whether it's I put up a sign at my market, okay? Or I have friends talking about me with other people, or I have a Facebook ad, or I have a video on Facebook. They become aware of you in some way. And then they move from that, and then they begin to engage with you. They might actually talk to you at the market. They might actually watch the video and comment on it or ask a question now, or they're liking it, or they're posting something in the comment section. That's an example of beginning to interact with you. They're starting to reach out and want to make a relationship with you. Then the next phase is that they actually subscribe. You give them an opportunity to give contact information to you. So you might give them some sort of a bribe, right? Like, hey, download this freebie if you want to learn how to do this XYZ skill, and you can have my freebie, and I get your email address in return. And I'm going to kind of teach you some more stuff once you give me your email address. Okay, so people don't jump to this step right away, right? They need to warm up. They need to pass through a frame before they're willing to do that. And once they do, then they might buy something, very low dollar amount, just kind of low risk. Eventually, you begin to cultivate that relationship more and more. They step through the next pre-frame, and now they're ready to purchase your signature product, right? And then they get excited. You teach them how to use it. You keep training them. You provide them with resources so they can have quick wins and love the product. And then they slowly ascend up your brand as you continue to pitch them more and more offers and really maximize the lifetime value of that customer. Finally, they move over to the advocate and promote phase, where they are actually becoming ambassadors for your farm and talking about your farm and products with other people. All right, so this process, this is the journey through the corn maze that I just talked about, right? It's the journey of a customer, and you create these portals, these windows. You frame those windows through which they pass, so that they know, like, and trust you more and more. They build that relationship with you. It's just like any other relationship in life. You don't ask somebody to marry you on the first date. You don't say, shell out $700 for the CSA box. Oh my God, I don't know who you are. No, right? You need to cultivate that relationship. You ask them out on a date for coffee first, and then maybe you might go out on a group date, or you might go out on another date, and so forth and so forth. And then you might actually get married and go for the big kahuna. It's just like that with CSA marketing as well, okay? So here are some questions that I want to just kind of throw at you as you're kind of thinking through this concept of pre-framing. What does that actually look like, Corinna? So I want to encourage you, maybe if you're driving right now or you're watching this somewhere and you can't, at some point come back and get a piece of paper out and write down these questions that I'm going to go through here, and then take some time, leave some space underneath those questions, take some time with your business partner to kind of talk through these, because this is going to help you understand your opportunities that you have right now, where you can be creating pre-frames for your customers, where you can create that first portal of entry where they can get to know you better. So the first question I want you to write down or think about is, where was your customer, your potential client, your lead, right before they saw or heard about your brand for the first time? Where were they? Were they at a farmer's market? Were they at a friend's house eating a fantastic meal that was made from your box? Were they just scrolling through Facebook? Were they eating at a fancy foodie restaurant and they saw your name on the menu? Okay, so where physically were they? Were they in a place? What triggered that first encounter with you? Because that is a type of pre-frame. So just be thinking, there are some physical locations where people first hear about you, and just kind of jot down what some of those might be, or some actions that people typically do. Like, I consider social media scrolling to be kind of like a place. A lot of people do that, and that's the first time they might run into your brand. The second question you could ask to help you kind of get around this idea of pre-framing is, what were they feeling when they first encountered your brand? Okay, maybe this is where you kind of do some research on your ideal customer avatar, but were they feeling really frustrated about maybe they were at the grocery store in the winter and they could not find a stinking, tomato that tasted good. And they're like, gosh, I wish I could go to the farmer's market, or I wish I could get, farm fresh food every week. All right. And then they go home and they see something come through the Facebook page and they're like open to listening to it because they just had that pain point. Or maybe like we just had a 14-day lunchbox challenge. And so I've gotten I think I've gotten over 75 email leads just from that challenge alone. They're still rolling in because it's kind of an evergreen challenge now. But there are people who stumble upon this challenge and they're frustrated with making their kids lunches too. Gosh darn it, I feel like I never know what to put in that lunch, or I feel really bad because I'm putting Lunchables in all the time. And they have that feeling of not being good enough, not being the mom they should be, not providing the right foods for their kids. And they feel ashamed or they feel regret over that. And so then when they see something like the 14-day lunchbox challenge, and that's the first time they ever see something about my farm, that's the pre-frame that they're coming from, right? From a place of pain and frustration. And now they see hope. They see this post about you and you are bringing hope. Maybe they're like a mom who is on the run all the time, taking their kids all over the place after school. And here they are running through Burger King for the second time this week. And she's feeling guilty about that. And all of a sudden, maybe that night she's scrolling through the Facebook feed and she sees something about your farm. And she's like, man, I need to feed them more healthily. Okay? Like, what are they feeling? What just happened before they ran into your farm brand for the first time? So this is where it gets really fun, and where the exercise, I did a training on knowing your ideal customer avatar. There's a whole training in there about how to get inside the head of your customer and like what is their typical day like, and try to identify what they do, what they feel, what those moments of stress are, and where your product, your farm box could be a solution for them, and how it could solve that pain point, that emotional pain that they're feeling. Not just the physical need of I need food, but like there are other reasons why people end up purchasing your box. It's not just because they need your calories from your vegetables. Maybe they were reading a cooking magazine and they saw an article about CSAs and they decided to go and do a search. And they were like, you know what, I need to eat more healthy. Or maybe they were in a Facebook group for foodies. Maybe they are a foodie and they're in a Facebook group and somebody was talking about their CSA. Okay, so what were they feeling when they first saw something about your brand? Or maybe like an hour before they ran into your brand, what happened? Okay, the third question you could ask is, what have they seen or heard from you before you actually pitch your CSA? So what kinds of interactions have they had with you prior to the pitch? So remember, I've talked about there's the initial pre-frame, right, when they first come into your brand, but then there are many other opportunities to frame interactions with them. So what else have you done? How else have you shown up for them and provided value for them? So have they been to the farmer's market and seen you there in person multiple times? Have they come out to your farm for some reason? Maybe you have a roadside stand, or they've actually been there for a tour of some sort, and that's how they first heard about you and met you. Do you do a lot of teaching videos like I do on your Facebook page? So you're just kind of showing up in their feed from time to time. When I boost posts, I know that people are kind of seeing me a lot in their feed, and I'm just sort of an educator on how to eat healthy and how to eat farm food. Are you just doing videos from your farm? Maybe you're doing behind the scenes stuff, or you're showing videos of people harvesting the product, or how things are actually done on a farm. And that helps them feel connected to you. Like they're like, oh, I know about a farm and I feel like I'm starting to get to know this farmer. Like, so what are those things that you have done prior to actually asking them to buy the CSA? So try to write all those things down. If you just got like one or two things, you probably haven't pre-framed enough. But if you have a lot of different opportunities where you have shown up in front of them and told the story, or helped them, served as a guide for their journey as the hero, then you're going to have an easier time, I should say, helping them decide, yes, I want to purchase that product. Are you sending emails to them? This is why I send a weekly email to my list. I think it's really, really important because I just want to keep showing up in their inbox. I know that they don't open all of them, but one day when they are ready and they want to buy, they're going to think of my farm first, because I continue to show up and remind them that I'm there, right? I'm pre-framing myself as an expert in the space. Are you doing YouTube videos? Here's another way to think about this question too. So we just started our early bird campaign for our current members on Sunday. That was yesterday. And Kurt came up to me this week on Friday and was like, okay, so what should go into the box next week? And he kind of said, we've got 2 weeks left. Here's kind of what I have left out in the field. Here's what I'm thinking. And he kind of showed me the options. And I said, you know what, why don't we stack the deck on this coming week? Because I know people are going to see what's going to be in their box on a Saturday email. And then on Sunday, this email is going to come out that says the store's open. And if they see this bounty in their box, a strong kind of final box before the pitch, then that might encourage them to, be like, yeah, I want to do this again. I'm loving this experience. Okay. As opposed to having maybe a box that's, if I have to choose a box, like one that's really heavy and one that's a little bit lighter, I'm like, let's put the heavier one now. So this is again an example of me pre-framing. I'm thinking about the journey that my customer is going to go through. They're going to go through this experience of a final box, and then I'm going to ask them to walk through a door with me where I pitch them an offer, and they're going to be more likely to say yes if they've been pre-framed the right way. I hope this is making sense. All right, fourth question that you could ask is, what do they see when they come to your website? Because your website is a huge pre-frame. In many cases, when people are researching, when they get into that mode of I think I want to maybe do a CSA, or I'm starting to look into it, they're going to go through the research phase. That's one of the stages of consideration. Sorry about that. Hope that didn't cut out too much there. They are going to be looking for information about your product from your website. So what does your website look like? Okay. Does the copywriting on your website speak to their pain points, to their aspirations? To that, I talk a lot about how the hero in the journey, which is your customer, you are the guide for them, right? So they're coming to your brand with a problem that they want to solve. It's not just, I want food, but they're usually coming because they want you to meet another need. So what is that other need, that deeper need? Perhaps it's to connect with a local farmer, and feel like I'm eating sustainably, or being a part of the bigger solution, or having safe food to eat, whatever it might be. Does your copy on your website talk about that? Because they're going to read that, and the words that they read become the frame through which they first get to know you and what you stand for and what you're all about. Or is it just a bunch of confusing prices and offers, and they can't tell, they can't even think, their brain just shut down? Do you have pictures of yourself, or an aerial shot of your farm that's maybe highly pixelated? Or is it a picture of your customers using your product, smiling, so that your prospect looks at that again as a pre-frame? I can be that. That could be me. All right. So thinking about your website as a primary place where people get pre-framed, and how can you change the copywriting and the experience on the website? I'll be doing a lot of training this coming fall on how to build a better website, because I did that last year. And I feel like I have a lot that I can say to on that, but something to think about. Fifth question, what have they bought from you before you make this CSA offer? Okay, that's another form of pre-framing. So have they come and purchased like a small dollar purchase from you? Do you have products that are low dollar, that are low risk, so that they can just try out the taste of your product, right? So if you're asking someone, a cold audience, to just come and like buy a $500 product, and they don't even know if it tastes any better than something at the grocery store, that's a tough ask. But if you've provided opportunities within the customer journey, within the frames, where they can taste something on a low dollar amount, then they have a good experience with it, or they've come to the farmer's market and bought something from you and you have amazing customer service, or they feel like they have an affinity with you and they really like you and they have great conversations with you, and now they're connecting with you as a farmer, and they're thinking, I want her or him to be my farmer. That is a pre-frame, right? That's a powerful pre-frame. So be thinking about what kind of tripwire offers or small dollar purchases have those buying experiences been good ones? Are you creating, do you have products in your pipeline that people can buy that are at a low level like that? So if you're a brand new CSA and you want to start a CSA farm, I always encourage people not to just start, right from the get-go as a CSA. I think it helps if you start as a farmer's market for a while and just have a booth there, so that you can kind of get to know how to grow stuff and how to sell things, how to connect with customers before you start jumping right into a CSA. Okay, sixth question is there taxi light on? And I've done a whole video training on the taxi light principle, but essentially this is, are they ready to buy? There are certain times in the year when CSA customers are more likely to buy if you've warmed up the audience properly. So asking someone to purchase, in the spring is kind of the ideal time because the weather is waking up. People are starting to think about getting outside and gardening. Like we all know that's probably the ideal time to really be asking people. Asking someone in January to a cold audience, that's a hard sell and you probably shouldn't do it. Like I don't really recommend people running promotions in January or February unless you're the kind of CSA farm that, has stuff all year long. That's a totally different case. But we're only a summer thing. And so to me, it feels like if I'm going to do a launch and like take the time to really promote and sell hardcore for 2 weeks, I'm going to do that in like very strategic moments of the buying cycle when I know that when the taxi light is on, when they're willing to let someone into their cab. There are certain periods of time when people are not willing to let someone in their cab. Their light is off. They're taking no passengers, right? So identifying when those times are, and then building your offers around those ideal times. I think there's a lot of power in creating an early bird campaign right at the end of the season because people are, ready they're ready to say goodbye, but at the same time, they want to end things well. They want to kind of go out with some momentum. And this is a great time to capture that. If you wait, 6 weeks after CSA is over, you're missing some of that momentum that you could have had. So I think there is really a best time to even do early bird. Okay. And then I was going to mention under this section, upsells. Do you have any upsells? So an upsell is something that you offer immediately after someone puts down money and says, yes, I'll buy your CSA. Do you follow up with, hey, now that you've got your wallet and credit card out, how about adding this into your cart too? They're much more likely, I think it's like 20% of people will purchase an upsell is what the industry standard is. So a lot of people don't even ask because it doesn't occur to them or they might feel kind of weird about it. But if you have things that you could pitch after they've already kind of opened up their hearts and their willingness to buy, then that is the time to do so. So knowing the right time to pitch another offer. Okay, and then the final question that you need to think about is this. Are they coming from a negative pre-frame? So this is sometimes tricky. You don't always have control over this, but be aware that this can happen. I know that we've heard stories about, from other farmers about customers that came from bad CSA experiences, and they, then try out another one, and they're bringing their baggage with them. They're bringing their fears and their misgivings. Like they want to believe in it and they want to do it, but there's a part of them that's like, oh man, what if this happens again? Okay. As a farmer, you need to know that that's out there, and you need to kind of be very gentle with those folks, and you need to have kind of information and a process that will really speak to those kinds of people. There are also customers coming in with a quote unquote negative pre-frame in the sense that they have objections to your product. They're either looking at it and saying, that is really expensive. I don't know about that. I know that's a popular or common one that I hear a lot. So identifying what those objections are, writing those down right now so that you're aware of them, and then you can create frames that honor kind of those concerns that some of your customers have and alleviate them. So maybe you create a video that deals with each one of those objections one by one so that it allows that person to pass through that pre-frame and feel better and come out of that negative pre-framing and move into another space and be ready to buy. All right. Okay, I'm going to try and wrap this up. So how do you actually pre-frame? What does this look like practically? I'm going to kind of just give you sort of big picture for me, how I do this most often. So step one, you really need to know who your ideal customer is. You need to do the research. And there's like I said, a video of defining your ideal customer avatar, the customer that you most want to work with, all right? The customer that you most want to grow for. There are a lot of people out there that are buying vegetables from you, but there's probably a top 10, 20% of people that you love growing for, who would love you no matter what, who buy a ton of stuff from you, who are into food. Okay, those are the people that if I could pick anyone, those would be the ones I would want to work with. Okay, so I've identified who they are. I've done some research on them. I know how they think, what they spend their time on. So really getting to know your customer, what makes them tick, what their pain points are, why they came to you, what they want from you, so that you can deliver on that, all right? Where do they want to be? Where were they before they came to you? Where do they want to be after they come to you? And then how can your product help get them there? Okay, so that's kind of step one, really understanding and dialing into that. Step two is then, for me, is providing valuable content for free that's going to help my customers get to where they want to go. All right, so the free part is important because that's what provides goodwill. There's a reason why I'm going onto my Facebook page, and because I want them to be like, wow, I just learned something really cool. I'm going to go try that. And their life changes a little bit, inch by inch. Then they hear another video from me. Oh, wow, I didn't know that. And their life changes again a little bit, inch by inch. And slowly but surely, that goodwill begins to form with me and my brand. And then eventually, if and when they're ready to decide, if they keep getting emails from me and they're like, I want to do this, if that know, like, and trust factor is strong enough and they're a good fit, then they'll say, I want to purchase, right? So for me, step two looks like this. I do a lot of video content. I usually try to pick one video a week that I'm going to do on my business page. And I'll come up with other like posts or content maybe 3 times a week, but I really focus a lot on my social media sites for that kind of free content. And I boost some of those, just boost geographically. Sometimes I boost targeted to my customer avatar. But I'm just trying, there's no pitch in those things. There's no like sign up or get this freebie, or sometimes there's that. But most of the time it's just free teaching. And that's all just brand awareness. It's just trying to hit the people, if you look at this, that are down here. I just want to move them from unaware to aware to engaged, right? I want to get them. All right, I keep having my phone saying I'm cutting in and out, sorry. So I just do this video stuff over and over again. People eventually get onto my email list. I also send out a weekly email, and the email usually revolves around the topic of the week, which is defined by that initial video that I do. So everything kind of spirals around this one center. If you want to kind of learn about that topic or that concept, you can watch the Pentagon Method video, which I just did a few weeks ago, and you can find that in the video archives. That's another really good kind of trick that I use. I also share a weekly blog to my business Facebook page, which also spirals around that same concept. So there's many different, educational pieces where I'm trying to just brand myself as a teacher in the space. I'm going to add value to you. I'm going to give you free content that's going to create this goodwill so that you come to know, like, and trust me. Okay. And then finally, step 3 is I make offers. I actually go for the ask, but here's the thing, I don't do it all the time. So a lot of times I'll look at other farms' Facebook pages and I will see like almost every post is like a promotional post. They come and buy this, here's what we have at the farm stand today. And that does not always work. That doesn't work. I'm just gonna say that. People start to get tired of seeing the same promotional stuff over and over again, and they kind of tune out. They begin to see you as, oh, they're only marketing all the time. They just want they just want me to come out and buy. But if you can space that out where you give, and then ask, give, then ask, then it doesn't feel icky for you, and it doesn't feel icky for them either. So that's kind of the model that I try to follow, is I do a lot of giving, build that goodwill, the know, like, and trust factor. And then I have very specific periods throughout the year where I'm highly promotional and I'm unapologetic about it, where it'll be like 2 weeks promotion to get email, to try and get people to give me their email address. Or that's like a list building blitz campaign. Or 2 different times in the year where I have 2 weeks where I try to get people to sign up for the CSA hardcore. And I have a very special offer with bonuses, okay? And I just do that twice a year. So those are some examples of, like, I do definitely go for the ask, but I'm not doing it all the time. I'm making sure to kind of rotate that so that most of the time I'm giving. And so that there's this brand awareness that begins to happen. I'm not seen as the person who's always asking for stuff, but instead we're seen as a farm that's giving. And that goes a long way. I also want to say it's not just that we're giving, it's what we give is helping solve our ideal customer's problem. All right. It's not just like information that they don't care about. I know what my customer avatar needs to learn. I know what's going to help them grow to the next level. And that's what I provide to them. I'm very focused on the hero, and I turn myself into the guide. Do not let myself be the hero. I used to make myself the hero of my brand. I would talk about myself all the time and our brand and what we were doing. And once I learned that we had to make the customer the hero and it was my job to be the guide, it absolutely changed everything about how I pre-frame and how I market. So before I end, I just kind of want to show this picture again. Sometimes I talk about funnels. The marketing is often, a funnel is often used to describe the marketing process because it's kind of like a giant funnel. You have many different levels of customers. You have traffic up here, right? People who aren't even aware that you exist. You put your ad in front of them maybe on Facebook, and then they slowly become aware of you. They enter your funnel, right? They walk through one of your pre-frames. And then begins the journey. And some of them will eventually, engage with some of your videos. They'll start building a relationship with you. They'll move down through more pre-frames. They'll get further and further down the funnel. Then they might even exchange their contact information with you. They might buy a low dollar product value from you. They might even eventually, when you pitch them the CSA, then they're down here and they actually walk through that pre-frame and they're ready, and now they're in the funnel hardcore. And then you've got people down here who are your brand ambassadors, right? Who will never leave, who will just keep building up your funnel more and more. So seeing your business as a funnel, and then seeing your marketing strategy as a funnel, and then making sure that you're creating pre-frames for multiple places in the funnel, okay? Not just up here. You need to have some for in here too, to move people through. Otherwise they'll get stuck. They'll get stuck at, giving you their email address, and then they'll never go any further with that. You need to offer them other frames, other doorways to walk through. So I want to go back to that story I told you about the corn maze, right? The haunted corn maze. Those people, those ghosts and those guys with the scary chainsaw and the people with the masks who would jump out at you from the corn, they had a mission. They had a doorway that they wanted me to pass through. They had a path in the maze. They had been told by their boss, people need to go down that way. And so you have the same power in your brand. You can decide how you want your customers to move, which doorways you want them to walk through. And it's your job as a marketer to pre-frame that experience for them. I hope this was helpful, you guys. Lots of food for thought. Take some time to go through those questions with your business partner and think through maybe one or two additional frames that you can create this coming season to help warm up your audience so that they actually travel down the path you want and get into your funnel. Take care, guys. Bye.